nearly 3 years from D-Day. I've been reading Reddit stories on infidelity for a while and have contemplated for nearly 2 years whether to post. This is a longer post, however it encompasses about 2 years of my experience with a cheating wife while I was in the army. Hope you like to read. This is a long one. I, 28M, have been with my wife, 26F, for 8 years, married for 4. Let's call my wife Kay. Some backstory: Kay and I got together at a young age and in 2-ish years moved in together, 2016. Kay enjoys alcohol a little too much and has always tried to portray herself in a promiscuous nature. She has always fought with depression and I have always been there for her, whether it was staying up until 3 a.m. because she had a bad day at work or taking time away from my activities at her request. Looking past her flaws, seeming small to me, we got married after 3 years. Shortly after, I joined the army to fulfill my dream as well as getting us out of our hometown and state, which was a big dream of hers. This allowed us many opportunities, but she soon grew a hatred for my job. After a few weeks at my new duty station, I was sent off for a 9-month deployment, 2017 to 2018. During the time of my deployment, Kay fell into a self-proclaimed depression which I tried as best I could to help, though I was on the other side of the world. She spent lots of money on little things, bought a Jeep that I begrudgingly said yes to, and she spent her days at home rather than finding friends, hobbies, or a job. When I got back from deployment, I myself fell into a depression which compounded with anxiety. At the time all Kay wanted to do was drink, party, and go out while I wanted to just come home after 10 to 14 hours working in the motor pool 6 days a week on average. She eventually went to work at a nearby town as an EMT where she met some strange new friends, as they liked to drink and party. In retrospect, I wanted to make her happy and I went out as often as I could with her, but it never seemed to be enough. Fast forward to my last field training in 2019, I left and things seemed fine though she felt distant within the previous weeks. We had been trying to conceive for a few months leading up until then with no results. Before I left to my month-long training she made a big deal about getting back on birth control as soon as possible, which I found rather odd. At that time my depression had begun to peak, and I had told her I knew something was wrong with me, so I let it go without question. It's hard to describe, but it felt like the check engine light came on in my mind one day. I told her I needed to get through this last training and I will work on myself and I will put more into us. I felt terrible leaving. I felt terrible about myself, about my marriage, about my life. The majority of the time I was away I had to keep the constant thoughts of reaching into the tracks of my tank to kill myself. All I wanted was to be home with my wife. When I returned she told me over the phone that she doesn't love me, and that we need to take a break. I was devastated. I had asked questions about why, and what I could do to change her mind to no avail. One question in particular stands out to me though. I asked her if she grew feelings for someone else, not maliciously, but in an understanding tone. Her eyes grew wide and her face grew flush as she berated me for asking such a question, that she knew I was going to turn to that question and how dare I think that of her. Within 2 weeks she packs up her belongings that she wanted and left to live with her friend. Only taking one of our dogs and leaving me with the rest of our pets, the ones I never asked for but got with her to make her happy. As she was walking out the door she asked why I looked so upset. I told her I felt like she was abandoning me, that throughout our relationship I always was there for her and her depressive episodes, and that this all seemed unfair. She suddenly grew angry and left without saying anything except for an exacerbated gasp. At the time I was in awe, and it was the turning point for myself in terms of my depression. I looked towards counseling, I read books on relationships, I tried many things to get her to change her mind, and began exercising. After a couple of weeks of trying to sway her I grew frustrated and gave up on my pursuit. I called her, said that since things look like they are completely through with us, that if it was okay if I start to talk to other people. She paused for what seems like an eternity and with a choked-up voice says yes. I continue to work on myself physically and mentally. I continue to fix up the house, go to the gym, read books, and become more social with my friends at work. I talked with some women, but I felt disgusted at the fact I felt like I was giving up on her, which hindered any success I had talking with some women. Aside from that fact, I saw a change in myself. I was happy, I felt confident, I could do anything I put my mind to. Things were fine for me until February 2020, where Kay and I had to meet to do our taxes. She saw me and all that I had become and jumped at the chance to talk with me again. I naively wanted her back. We talked some, hung out, and within a month she moved back into the house. I had asked her if she had slept with anyone during our separation and she told me no. With no other reason to doubt her, I took the answer at face value. Sometime in March, a school friend of hers wanted to meet up at a bar. Kay invited me to go. I don't usually like the bar scene, but felt that I should go to solidify our rekindled relationship. We meet up with her friends B, M, and J, F, and begin to talk and drink. After a while some more guys show up that J knew and she introduced us all. From there B began to ask me about the army, so Kay turned her attention to J. After a while Kay said her and J were going inside to use the bathroom and to get some more drinks, so B and I continue to talk. After 30 or so minutes B asks me if Kay and J have been gone a while. I'm not terribly worried, but within a few minutes they return. I noticed that when Kay and J return, J's guys' friends followed them outside. Kay sits next to me on the bench, but faces away to talk with the group. B and I continue to talk for a minute or two until I notice B turns white, with his mouth agape looking to my side. I turn to see what's up and notice one of the guys was kissing Kay, not a peck. He had his hands around her hips and she had her hands on his package. I stood up, pushed his shoulder, but they were holding on to each other and were drunk. I then planted my feet and pushed him into the wall that was behind him as I made a scene and said, "That's my wife." The entire bar turns to me. Kay begins to drunkenly laugh, followed by Jay and the guy Kay was kissing. In that moment I felt such embarrassment and betrayal. I didn't know what to do, my heart sank in disbelief. I told Kay we were leaving now, to her friends saying that we don't need to leave. I could have easily punched that whole group for what had happened, but I pushed Kay into the car and we left. I carried her to the bed, pushed a pillow under her back and put a bucket next to the bed while I drank a bottle of tequila and threw it through the front door while I felt my world crash around me. The next day she claimed she was blackout drunk. She didn't remember anything, she thought she was drugged. I followed up by saying we should get her tested and write a report. She then said, being in the medical field, that the drugs would have already passed through her system and that a police report won't do anything. Bells and whistles rang loudly in my head and I naively trusted her. From there some weird little things and quirks seemed to rear its head now and again, but nothing that screamed at me to question further, until July. July was when I was getting out of the army. I had set time aside for a vacation for us to travel back to California to see my family, which she has told me she hates. It had been over a year since I had seen them and I wanted to see them, so I told Kay that we will set aside 2 days just for us. We left for California in the afternoon, and it would be about a 20-hour trip. Halfway there, somewhere past midnight, I noticed there were some messages that was on her phone. I found it odd that she never gets messages during the day and now she has them coming in by the dozens. So while she slept in the car while I drove, I made the decision to snoop. I saw some messages from guys talking about how good the dates were back during our 4-month separation. I felt sick but didn't read further. I didn't confront her then, but the messages seemed to sear into my brain during the vacation. One night at my dad's cabin everyone fell asleep watching a movie. I woke up Kay and said we need to talk, so we went outside to sit in the car. I told her I found some things on her phone and that I didn't appreciate her talking to other guys while we were separated. Her face went white as a ghost as she snatched her phone from my hand and proceeded to delete her Snapchat, saying she will never use the app again. I found the interaction odd. My gut told me to press further, but again I withheld the pursuit, which made me so uneasy. I felt we had talked about the issue and came to a resolution. I had told her that when she gave me the go-ahead on dating that I had been with one other woman and I felt terrible about it with regret. When it was her turn to discuss, she said she was only working on herself and simply talking to these guys to pass the time with a date here and there. I asked her if that was all and she promised that was it. After returning from California, the interaction at the cabin was troubling to me. Things weren't adding up. I felt there was more, so I opened her phone while she was asleep, re-downloaded her Snapchat and read through everything I could find. She saved most all of her Snap messages. I saw that she in fact had been having s*x with other men during our separation. I woke her up and told her she lied to me. Another 2-hour discussion ensued and I gave in to her defense that we were separated at the time and that she didn't want to tell me at the cabin because she didn't want me to think differently of her. Things still didn't feel right to me, but I went along with the story to go to bed since I was tired. A few more weeks go by and I wake up one night feeling something else has to be in this cluster $$ of my marriage. I went through her phone one more time and began to look way back. I felt almost obsessive at this point in finding that missing piece of this whole charade. At last I found it. I felt like Sherlock Holmes when I read messages with guys she was speaking with that was dated before our breakup. I even learned they were intimate the very weekend I left for my training. Shortly after feeling a sense of relief, like finishing a big project you've been working on, I immediately fell into a sense of rage. I woke her up and berated her for being a cheater, for lying to me constantly. The interaction that follows is the first time I knew she was gaslighting me. She claimed that I was disrespecting her, taking things out of context, and that I didn't trust her or respect boundaries. It was a very heated morning. She got out of bed claiming she doesn't need this and that she was going to go to work 3 hours early. I said stay, I want to talk, but she left. An hour later she returned saying she called off work, then proceeded to go to bed saying she won't talk to me. After some time trying to talk with her I felt defeated. I left the house and started walking for hours. When I returned she turned on the waterworks. Everything seemed so heavy. Over the weeks she convinced me that I should forgive her. Over the months we worked on our marriage. I never completely trusted her again though. I would check her phone and messages constantly as that was one of my stipulations for staying together. Her friends always fed into her being the victim, claiming that I'm too jealous, asking why I'm so hurt when they made claims that I was in the army. Of course I cheated every opportunity one could on her. I never so much as looked at another woman like I did with her. Her boss even consoled her, which I was always suspicious of since they have said some unprofessional things to each other before, like all the places they were going to F***ed. She always claimed that those were simply jokes. Things seemed to get better between us until we finally got a counseling session. She claimed the counselor was a quack and that she will not attend. She began to stay in the next town over where she worked more often. I even noticed she changed her passwords on everything. I felt more comfortable about the past by now, though I still had reservations. We even put in offers on some houses, however I noticed she was beginning to become closed off again. One night we went to the next town over to hang out with some of her co-workers, which was fun. But her very attractive friend invited us to go back to her place to sleep off the alcohol, but she warned us that she herself was planning on hooking up with another co-worker. We went over, drank a little more. One thing led to another. My wife and her friend made out, which I didn't think was cheating at the time. Then her friend and the male co-worker went into the other room. Her friend came out moments later saying the male co-worker passed out, but that she needed me. She walked up to me and attempted to kiss me, to which I shrugged her off, looking at my wife saying I'm not cool with this. She said that it's okay. F***ed. Horror. I was speechless and simply said I'm not comfortable with that as we are working on each other. That was that. A few messages came in from her boss at an odd time of the night, even though we had a conversation before about him talking to her. I was doing some concrete work earlier in the day, so I used the excuse of checking on the concrete. I peeked into our bedroom window and found them messaging heavily and her taking pictures of herself for him. The next week after, we won a bid on a house, but she suddenly changed her mind. This was the last straw for me. I told her I wanted a divorce. The next few hours ensued a large argument. I told her that I'm unhappy. That I'm tired of being played a fool. That I'm tired of not being able to progress in life because she can't make up her mind. and that she has wasted 7 years of my life because she always deferred having children until we were set as adults. She knew I wanted kids young and she took that from me, as now she says she doesn't want to have kids and has never really wanted kids. She left to work, and when she came back she said she empathized with how I feel and that she would agree to the divorce. We started the divorce process in October. She asked me to go to California because I was so flustered, and we can talk more about it when I got back. That I should spend a few weeks with my family before I started my new job in November. While I was in California, I had a great time with my family. I didn't have my wife trying to derail conversations or pull me away from my family. I could spend all the time I wanted with them. This is when I let my family and friends know what all went on for the past year and a half. I was shocked to find out that family and friends had been hiding their suspicions from me as well. They claimed I didn't need to have all that information weighing on me while I was in the army, and that they didn't want to put ideas in my head. Although I was upset, I knew they were trying to good for me. I called my wife in a fury and brought up every one of the stories and told her she lied to me again, actually about our whole marriage. That I wouldn't be surprised if she slept with guys before I even joined the army. It felt good to have a real grasp of the truth and lies at this point, as I realized that as my world for 7 years crumbled around me, I was open to the gaslighting that had kept me so obedient so long. I wouldn't say I'm a red pill kind of guy, but I see so much of my cheating experience play out in every single story I read and hear. When I returned, I continued with the divorce request, telling her that she should submit it. She did. We split everything in an agreeable way in the petition. Although we remained intimate after the decision, at this point I turned her advances down. A week later, after we signed some more forms, it finally hit her to the point where she was crying and sobbing, asking me why I'm doing this, stating that she didn't actually think I was going to go through with this, and that this whole thing is unfair. She agreed to the decision though. I'm sure she understood when I alluded earlier that if I submitted the divorce papers I would go for everything we had, and that I still had all her evidence. Over the coming months, while waiting for our cooldown to expire for the divorce, she stayed at the house until she could get her own place. After a few advances to get me in bed failed, she seemed to only sob when I was around. She tried lots of things to get me upset. She would play "Dead Ked Down in Dallas" and other cheating songs to get at me emotionally, and even brought a friend and 2 guys to my house to make me jealous. They tried to intimidate me, as the large but fat guy that was with my wife kept eyeing me down while his friend made remarks. I never said a word but did my laundry, walking right past them all to do so with my concealed carry-on, but with only a faint print through my pants. My wife's friend noticed and said, "Hey, let's all go now," to which my wife needed some convincing. As they left, I let a few words slip to my wife's man, saying, "Just remember, you're a soldier and she is a married woman. I'm sure your command wouldn't like to hear about that." From then on, she never came around the house with friends. A month later, she got a house in the town over, and that seemed to be that. I'm still in touch with my ex-in-laws. They're good people and helped me out tremendously throughout all this while apologizing for their daughter's decisions. We still get together to hang out now and again, and I am grateful to have them in my life. I just wish that things didn't go the way they did. They tell me that my now ex-wife went through a lot of boyfriends, although none of them seemed to stick like I did to her or them. She is now, however, with a 34-year-old who just got out of the army. They are now engaged and moved to Tennessee. Good luck to that man. I am currently doing well for myself. I am now renting out the house from my marriage, and am enjoying my new home in a different part of the city. Soon I will be restoring my grandfather's truck, which I have put off for years now. On the mental side of things, I feel damaged. I find it difficult to connect with others and to trust them. My dating life isn't great. I get a lot of attention and a lot of phone numbers, but many don't progress past the first couple of dates. I am not sure why I find it so difficult to add someone to my life. Perhaps it is because I am very picky now and don't care for drama. I figure some more time to heal is best before getting into serious dating. I have waited almost 2 years to post this. I wasn't sure I wanted or needed to, but lately I feel that for my healing process to be complete, that I need to get this all out on the table, as it's difficult to throw out all the gruesome details to friends or family. I've even left out some on here, as I feel this is getting to be a ridiculously long post. Although I am eager for this new chapter of my life to truly begin, I feel that there is a piece missing. Either way, I came out better than my ex, and I am thankful for that, for the clear conscience that I did everything possible to be a good person, and that I am wiser after all of this. I will never tolerate cheating again or ever go against my gut instincts. Thank you all for reading this far. It has been nearly 3 years since this all started. I hope you can use this story to make better decisions than I did. J. TLDR. Wife of 7 years was found lying over several months. As I put her under the microscope, I found a large web of lies that uncovered her dark secrets of infidelity, which finally pushed me over the edge, to which I divorced her and got the majority of our assets. I am now a free man with 2 houses, a few vehicles, and time to do as I please and who I please.